The Survival Logbook, a logbook that was launched on December 26, 2017 and contains several questions and quizzes such as would you rather questions, crosswords, and more. But there are also 3 other mysteries that have not been as easily answered than the others, and these are the Survival Logbook tallies, the word search, and 3, the Foxy-Grid. Let's go through each mystery and answer them in as much detail as we can. Before I begin to present the solutions, I would first like to inform you that the way I have chosen to read the mysteries will reflect the way people probably would have solved the puzzles at the time when the book was published. To add, I will not mention any clues that have emerged between the time the book was released until now, but will present the facts or clues to the solutions we had at that time. So all in all, this video is going to replicate an example of what a video from 2017 may have looked like on how to solve this difficult puzzle. I also recommend that you first watch my guide on how to solve Midnight Motorist before this video, as most of what is contained in that video is later on used to solve this logbook. The tally marks are found on several pages throughout the book. Page 9 shows a 5, page 19 shows 2 5s, page 31 shows 2 5s and a 4, page 36 with a 5, and page 100 with another 5. If you add up the numbers, you get 39. Since almost all of the numbers are marked as 5 except for one that has a 4 on it, you get the value 39 instead of the more common 40, which means that 39 looks very odd on purpose. Usually, when using tally marks, you count up to a certain value that you don't know what it first is, that is, an unknown value. So when you count every mark except the last one, you will land on 5. In this case, whoever wrote these tallies therefore counts down until they reach 39, which gives the last tally the number of 4 and thus the end of the whole count. But why the number 39? Well, if you look up the number 39, you'll see that page 32 is called 39, which is wrong, which means you'll discover a bigger mystery where there are multiple pages with the same page numbers. To strengthen the solution, you use these tallies to tally up to a certain value, so by adding them up, the 39 leads us to the next mystery. On page 58, there's a word search where you have to search for all the words you can find. Everything from Afton Robotics to Chica, Party, Foxy, Freddy, Bonnie, Let's Eat, Pizza, Laugh, Fun, Cake, Guard, and Play. But there are also more phrases that can be found in the word search that are not included in this given list. These are who are you and what is your name. In the book, there's a faded gray text entitled My Name, the page of which contains prominent numbers from the number of pages considered to be marked and important. But whose name is this? Well, the book was released on December 26, 2017, which was 3 weeks and 1 day after the latest game at that time, which was Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator, released on December 4, 2017. At the end of the game, you get a cutscene of all the missing children's gravestones after they reach the afterlife. All but 2 of the 7 children have a given name. Not only that, but the position of these gravestones also match perfectly with the position of the heads of the animatronics placed in the final cutscene of FNaF 3. The game that takes place right before Pizzeria Simulator in the FNaF timeline. Even Chica, who is the only girl animatronic, third in line and further back than the other heads, matches perfectly with Susie's gravestone, also the only girl among the missing children, and also number 3 in line in the row and the farthest back among all the other gravestones. Therefore, it is easy to conclude that these names presented are the names of the children who haunts the FNaF animatronics. Gabriel possesses Freddy Fazbear, Jeremy possesses Bonnie the Bunny, Susie possesses Chica the Chicken, Fritz possesses Foxy the Pirate Fox, but then there are also 2 more gravestones where the names are hidden. One of the gravestones sits at the back of the others, alone on a hill. The conclusion is that this gravestone belongs to the child who haunts the puppet, the one that died from a separate tragedy compared to all the other 5 missing children. Like we've already established in the previous guide to solve Midnight Motorist, the name of the puppet is presumably Charlie, a name we can find in the novel The Silver Eyes. The 5th gravestone, which is last in line of all the other 5 gravestones, is also hidden, which may be the gravestone we see later in the Survival Logbook. Actually, the same grave that on page 32 has the My Name reference. Hence, this gravestone is the grave of the 5th missing child haunting the 5th animatronic, which is believed to be Golden Freddy or Fredbear. The My Name reference is found on pages like 29 labeled as 52, page 32 labeled as page 39, page 43 labeled as page 15, page 47, where the numbers of 4 and 5 in the Hope Row section has been altered to 7 and 2. On page 79, there is a red text that tells us for real values see page 61. Once turning to page 61, you'll see a chalkboard with the written numbers of 5 plus 4 and the 3 alone in the corner. Page 85, where the rows of 10 and 11 has been marked in red. Page 108, where the last report is marked at the time of 8:11. Since these numbers are linked to the My Name reference, they're suspected of being linked to the word search. If you insert all the numbers from each page as coordinates into the word search, you would get a name. The order in which these numbers are chosen is the order in which they appear chronologically throughout the book. That is, the order of the pages. 52 means 5 across, 2 down, that gives a C. 39, 3 across, 9 down, that gives an A. 15, 1 across and 5 down, that gives an S. 72, 7 across, 2 down, that gives an S. 5 plus 4, 3, which is 9 across, 3 down, that gives an I. 10, 11, 10 across, 11 down, that gives a D. 8, 11, 8 across, 11 down, that gives a Y, spelling the name Cassidy. Therefore, the word search should be giving us the answer to the 5th missing child's name, Cassidy. The Foxy-Grid is a grid on page 95, where you have to draw a 8-bit character in a limited area with a certain amount of cells. In the first 3 cells in the upper left corner, Cassidy, who we've established from the previous mystery, talks in a faded text, has asked us to fill in the rest of the cells with letters in alphabetical order. She has also asked a lot of other questions throughout the book, with these being: Page 20. What do you remember? Page 23. Was your favorite childhood toy a plastic purple telephone? Page 31. Do you remember your name? Page 41. Do you have dreams? Page 42. Do any of these toys look familiar to you? Page 43. Do any of these belong to you? Page 56. Was your favorite ride a carousel? Page 59. What do you see? Page 70. Do you miss them? Page 75. Does he still talk to you? Page 83. Is this song familiar to you? And page 103 with The Party Was For You. But to who is Cassidy asking these questions? Some of these questions give us clues as to who Cassidy is talking to. Page 23 with the purple phone reference can be linked directly to the purple phone in FNaF 4's bedroom. The questions on page 41 can strongly be linked to the bite victim, as he experienced a lot of dreams during the events in FNaF 4. The image below the question also depicts one of the nightmare animatronics, the characters the bite victim feared the most. The question on page 70 may also be related to the bite victim's long-lost friends, who abandoned him at the end of the FNaF 4's minigame after completing night 6. Page 75's question can also be linked to the bite victim, who constantly hears his Fazbear plushie talking to him through every minigame in FNaF 4. The page where the question appears also has the Fazbear plush depicted, immediately tying this question to the bite victim who used to carry around this plushie. Lastly, the question on page 103 can strongly be linked to the bite victim, as the party was for him, the party that caused him to lose half of his head. Okay, so that might answer to who these questions are being asked to, but there are also other questions left that aren't so easy to connect to one single character like the bite victim. But what characters are left that are still present in this book? More specifically, how many characters are there left that can answer these questions? Well, the only other talking spirit inside the book besides Cassidy and the one who speaks in altered text in the word search is the red ink text. This red ink can immediately be connected to Michael Afton, as he wrote his nickname on page 2 of the book with the same red ink. Many of the things written by Mike bears strong references to the previous FNaF games that he participated in, such as Sister Location. However, none of the things written by Mike aren't direct responses to some of Cassidy's questions, and even if you'd missed my video where I briefly explain how the bite victim and Mike are separate characters and therefore brothers, there is additional evidence in this book to strengthen that they are separate. For example, if we look at the logbook, we see that on each first page on chapters 2 to 5, the character Foxy wears a security guard badge as well as a flashlight and is constantly in FNaF 3's office, suspiciously close to Mike, also being a security guard in FNaF 3 and who probably, as a security guard, wears a badge and a flashlight. And maybe you didn't think that my argument about Security Foxy representing Mike as the Foxy Bro was strong enough. I know, there's a page of Freddy and Bonnie who also wear badges like security guards even though they don't show up as often as Security Foxy does. I know that this doesn't necessarily support Mike being the Foxy Bro all in all, but if you turn to the first page of night 1, we once again see Foxy, this time without his badges and flashlight, but instead he reads a newspaper that is titled Screws, Bolts and Hairpins, a direct reference to Sister Location, a game we know for a fact Michael appears in.
The first day of your exciting new career. Whether you were approached at a job fair, read our ad in screws, bolts, and hairpins.
This, coupled with Mike writing in red text, the color associated with Foxy means that Mike is the Foxy bro and that he is separate from the crying child, as I already established in my Midnight Motorist theory. And why doesn't Security Foxy wear his flashlight and badge this time? Well, it's because that we are only on the literal first page on the first chapter. We haven't started our job yet. So since Mike clearly isn't answering Cassidy's questions, and that some of them are directly asked to the bite victim, we now know all the identities of the talking spirits inside this book. Cassidy is the one speaking in faded text, Mike in red ink, and the bite victim in the text that has been altered. Given the fact that bite victim, who is believed to be the spirit behind the altered text, already asked Cassidy of her name in the word search, it sort of makes sense for Cassidy to ask him questions back, just as how normal conversations work. And it's definitely not strange that these two have their own ongoing conversation between themselves, since they both possess one same animatronic, Golden Freddy. So does the bite victim respond to Cassidy's questions? Well, he does. Only 4 of these 12 questions gets answered in nights 4 and 5's feelings about tonight's shift. In the segments of these chapters, you're asked to call in an emotion you experienced during the course of the night and can rank your emotion on a scale from 1 to 10. If you compare the emotions you have to choose from between these same segments of every chapter, some emotions has been exchanged for what appears to be answers. Answers to the questions posed by Cassidy. The answers that appear on the following pages from top to bottom are as follows. Page 89, where health and existential dread has been replaced with I can hear sounds and it was for me. Page 109, where the feelings of fulfillment and purpose has been replaced with I can't see and I'm scared. The answers that we've been provided with strongly confirms our idea that the identity behind the altered text is the bite victim. I can hear sounds can be connected to how the bite victim constantly has to listen for the small breathings and footsteps coming from the nightmare animatronics in FNaF 4. I can't see is also connected to the bite victim, as he can't see since he got bitten on the forehead and is afraid every time of the animatronics. Again, there is only 4 responses to 12 questions, and given that these are the only direct responses to Cassidy's questions in the entire book, and that the answers comes from someone within the conversation, the other 8 unanswered questions are therefore misdirections. Now, I'm not going to ramble through every combination between the questions and the answers, but one problem you would begin to notice is how there are multiple questions that can be linked to one same answer. In situations like these, it can be hard to determine the right question if we don't have any context clues. For example, I Can Hear Sounds has 2 linking questions. Does it still talk to you? And is this song familiar to you? Is this song familiar to you seems completely unrelated to FNaF 4, and therefore this question, like the other ones that the bite victim don't recognize, therefore don't get responded. Instead, does it still talk to you with the Fazbear plush that bite victim carries around is recognized by him and therefore answered. From what we can find after trying every combination, these 4 questions seems to be the closest link to the answers. Let's go through them in the order the bite victim answers through night 4 and 5's feelings about tonight's shift from top to bottom. Page 75's Does It Still Talk to You, carrying the Fazbear plush below the question, is answered with I Can Hear Sounds. Page 103's The Party Was For You, this time having no concept clues, is answered with It Was For Me. This time a more formal and direct answer that undeniably seems to be the correct one for this question. Page 59's What Do You See, having a mirror above it, is answered with I Can't See. Compared to the other questions, the context clue on page 59 is a completely new thing that doesn't appear in any of the other previous FNaF games, such as FNaF 4. But like the last one, the answer I Can't See is a very direct response to What Do You See, which makes it hard to dismiss. The last and trickiest one, found on page 41, Do You Have Dreams, carrying the nightmare animatronic below it, is answered with I'm Scared. The answer I'm scared doesn't quite fit the question on page 41 well. However, with the context clue of nightmare given, the answer isn't actually so far-fetched. Once solving Midnight Motorist, a minigame released weeks before this book, we discovered that the footprints outside the house belongs to Shadow Freddy, aka Nightmare, who caused the bite victim's nightmares in the first place. This then leads to him responding in a non-direct answer, I'm scared, his final answer. Now that we have connected all of the 4 answers to the right questions from Cassidy, there is still a large grid left where Cassidy has asked us to fill in the boxes with letters, something that the bite victim doesn't respond in doing. Or does he? You see, back at the word search, Bite Victim asked for Cassidy's name, which led to her response by providing him with numbers that could be used as coordinates on that same page. This time, Cassidy, who is having a clear conversation with the Bite Victim, now asks for letters in the Foxy-Grid, almost as if we're supposed to get the Bite Victim's name on that same puzzle. Therefore, it seems that the remaining cells should be replaced with letters in alphabetical order. As soon as the alphabet runs out and there are no letters in the English alphabet, you start over and keep filling in until you reach line 10 of the grid. And why should you stop at row 10 and not fill in the entire grid? Well, because the numbers marking the rows fade out row by row after 10, and the whole thing looks like it's over, even though the rows of cells actually continue. But with what coordinates do we get the letters of Bite Victim's name? What special numbers have we been provided with along with Cassidy's questions? Well, the only prominent numbers we can find from the pages of the matching questions to Bite Victim's answers are the page numbers: 75, 103, 59, and 41. Now, I recently mentioned how we went through each of the matching questions in the chronological order Bite Victim answers in Feelings About Tonight's Shift. However, there is also a different order we can arrange these numbers in, with it being the order Cassidy asked the matching questions chronologically throughout the book. While once using page numbers from the book, the only space that matters in the grid is this area, the first 10 columns and the first 9 rows. The book consists of 110 pages, but since you can't go 0 down on the grid, you would end up with 109 pages, which results in 10 columns and 9 rows. This also means that the questions found on page 20 and 70 can't whatsoever be used as coordinates since they end at 0, but for pages that don't end with a 0 but still contains that number, like 103, will be used as 10 across and 3 down. Otherwise, if you'd believe the contrary, the puzzle maker should have just put this question on page 13 to make it clear. Now, remember how we previously filled in the boxes down to line 10, since the numbers marking the rows faded out after row 9. This would also line up perfectly with the page numbers, of course. But now notice how the numbers marking the columns don't fade out. In this case, we should therefore keep these boxes filled in with letters to make this certain arrangement of the letters, even if the space we end up using stops at column 10. Now let's try the order of response first before going over to the chronological order, by starting off page 75, which is 7 across 5 down, that gives an E, page 103, which is 10 across 3 down, that gives a V, page 59, which is 5 across 9 down, that gives an A, and lastly page 41 with 4 across 1 down, that gives a D. So what we're getting out is a VAD, which is obviously not a name. But before we try the chronological order, it is worth thinking about how many references there are in the logbook about taking a moment to self-reflect, and the pages the self-reflection hints comes from are as follows. Page 3. After each night work, we ask you to take a moment for self-reflection by completing the various activities in the following pages. Page 23. Reflect on the things in your life for which you are most grateful for. Page 31. Reflect on the happiest day of your life. And page 40. Reflect on the meaning of your dreams. A page that has the word dreams marked in bold. This page is also next to the page where Cassidy asks one of her questions that gets responded, also carrying the same word. Even if these references for some reason don't seem to say anything to you, there's even a mirror on page 59. Actually, the page next to the word search, which is on page 58. Interestingly, the page number where this mirror appears in, 59, is 95 but in reverse, showing how these two are connected to the same puzzle. And what happens if you put a VAD into a mirror? Well, it reflects backwards to Dave, the actual name of the crying child. Since the mirror is next to the word search, the puzzle that gave Cassidy's name, it becomes somewhat symbolic in some way to get the other child's name in the next page, pages that are in the middle of the logbook, and whose names derives from spirits that haunts the same animatronic. Let's try the order where Cassidy asks her questions that get responded chronologically throughout the book. By inserting the same 4 coordinates but in a different order, you get Dave. It's pronounced the same as Dave, although still misspelled. Here we can't use the reflection key to get Dave as it would not produce a real name. However, while still misspelled, it's a 4-letter long anagram that only and quite easily results in the name Dave. The same thing goes for Avad, a short anagram that only results in the same name, Dave. Oh, what was that now? Vade? Yeah, I have a really hard time believing this is Anakin Skywalker. Like Charlie's name, Dave also appears earlier in the same novel series, The Silver Eyes, and is William Afton's pseudonym, Dave Miller. This may be a strong clue that William chose his dead son's name after Dave, the bite victim's death at the bite of 83, a child whose nightmares William held great responsibility over both before and after his traumatic experience in the events of Midnight Motorist minigame. Again, I recommend watching this video so that you can understand and get some context behind what I'm referring to here. If you look more into the Afton family story, you'd notice how Michael, William's son, also uses a fake name deriving from one of the dead, Fritz Smith. Like father, like son, two security guards with fake identities from the dead. Now, once having all of the 4 names of the Afton family, let's study them one by both their name meaning and popularity around the US and the UK. William is a name of Germanic origin, meaning strong-willed warrior or resolute protector. Strong-willed warrior ties to how William, in multiple cases, refuses to die.
I always come back.
Resolute Protector, however, ties to how he, at least in FNaF 4 and in Midnight Motorist, watches over his son Dave through his own toy plushie. In terms of the name's popularity in the US, specifically in Utah, since that's the state where FNaF is believed to take place, William was ranked from 4th to 3rd in place, while in the UK being ranked on 9th place around the 1940s to 50s, a time period William would have been born if he's an adult and has children later on in the 70s and 80s. Just to explain, I've added UK to the list since that's where the Afton family originates from, because of their British accent. Michael, like the rest of William's children, has names of Hebrew origin, where this name translates to who is like God. Now, it's a rhetorical question, and no one's like God of course, but this however can strongly be tied to how Michael both looks and in some cases acts like his father, which results in him being confused with William.
They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you.
The reason why his father is dubbed as God is because of William's ability to recreate life by making his victims possess the animatronics. In Utah, or US, the name Michael went from 2nd to 1st place, while in the UK on the 9th place. Now, going over the name we solved in the Foxy-Grid, this time using the formal name David, since Dave is mostly used as a nickname, it translates to beloved, a word that's heavily connected to David since he was deeply loved by his father who looked after him day after day in the events of FNaF 4. I will put you back together. The name David was also ranked from 5th to 1st in the US and 3rd to 1st in the UK, higher ranking than the previous names. Lastly, there is Elizabeth, carrying the meaning God's promise or God is my oath, a direct reference to her promise that she makes for her father William, a promise that she kept almost her entire life.
I will make you proud, Daddy.
Interestingly, immediately after her quote where she makes her promise, Henry interrupts her by saying her name for the first time in this franchise.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Elizabeth. If you still even remember that name.
First goes the meaning behind their name and then followed up with the name itself, getting mentioned after. When it comes to the name's popularity, it's ranked as 24th to 19th in the US and 25th to 20th in the UK. Not as high as the other names, but still relatively good. So all in all, the 4 names of the Afton family all have a meaning that ties to the character arcs of that character, and were all popular names back at the time these characters would have been born. Now, Mike's role in this book is to simply help both Cassidy and David remember their names, so that they can tell each other who they are. The reason behind why the talking spirits don't know who they are, any help from Mike to get their names back, is because of the long time period that has gone since they died. Both victims are believed to have died at the 80s, and their conversation in the logbook itself takes place in modern times. In order to know how this logbook takes place in modern times, we go back to page 79, where Mike tells us to look for a real value that is featured on page 61. Of course, we already used this to get Cassidy's name, but if you follow Mike's guidance from a different view, we can translate the prize money of $16 to a modern one. By turning to page 61, as Mike was referring to, we can take 5 plus 4 times 3 to get 27. 27 being the modern real value of the 80s $16. Apart from that, there are multiple scenes of Security Foxy roaming around in the FNaF 3 office, an office that was built 30 years after the tragedies at Freddy's. Therefore, the book takes place long afterwards, hence the victims are now trying to get their names back. But how does Mike manage to make both Cassidy and David remember their names? In Cassidy's case, 5 of her 7 letters were derived from numbers marked in red by Mike, with one of them, 39, being a summarized value of his tally marks throughout the entire book. In David's case, it is only the letter of D that's derived from Michael, with it being one of the nightmare animatronics from FNaF 4. Speaking of the tally marks Mike wrote at the beginning, the tallies had 7 5s and a 4, which can mean that the 7 5s represent the 5th missing child Cassidy, whose name is 7 letters long, and that the one with 4 marks instead of 5 represents Dave's name, which is 4 letters long. Apart from this, there is one final scene in this logbook that is believed to be at the end of Cassidy and David's conversation. On page 31, there's an illustration where the puppet is giving a birthday cake to Cassidy, a scene that closely resembles the Happiest Day minigame in FNaF 3, the last scene before the missing children move on and descend up into heaven. On page 33, only 2 pages away from the illustration of the puppet giving a cake to Cassidy, the text at the top of the page has been altered to "Take a bite out of fun." However, every page that has these segments of prize tickets all have different titles that displays this page, except where it reads Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. That's always the same, but here everything has been altered, where it also reads "On your next birthday." Since David is the one who speaks in the altered text, he is basically wishing Cassidy to have a much more happier birthday, better birthday that he never got. Take a bite out of fun. So now that we know the full conversation and how it results in the talking spirit remembering their names with some help by Mike, let's go through the conversation and see if it all makes sense. What do you remember? Do you miss them? Did one of these belong to you? Did any of these toys look familiar to you? Was your favorite childhood toy a plastic purple telephone? Was your favorite ride a carousel? Is this song familiar to you? Do you have dreams? I'm scared. What do you see? I can't see. Does it still talk to you? I can hear sounds. The party was for you. It was for me. Do you remember your name? Dave. Who are you? What is your name? My name, Cassidy. Take a bite out of fun on your next birthday. And there you have it, a unique and extremely difficult puzzle that answers who both the bite victim and the 5th child among the missing children are, how they can communicate with each other since they possess one same animatronic, Golden Freddy, and how Mike helps them remember their long-lost pasts and names throughout the book. The biggest mysteries surrounding the tally marks, the word search, and the Foxy-Grid relies in finding the identities of the talking spirits inside this book, with the names being Cassidy and David, small but still important details that completes the last lore bits in the Five Nights at Freddy's story. Like I said in the beginning, I did not use later evidence published after the logbook, but since I only used evidence published before and at the time this logbook was released, and that almost all of it were used every time to solve this puzzle, we can still see all this as the intended solutions. Back at day 1, it was possible to solve all this all along. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below if you want to share your theories. Don't forget to share this video, like it, and if even better, subscribe. And that's it for me. Thanks for listening.